With just 3 days to go before South Carolina votes, we are witnessing an all-out war between the top Republican contenders and even new threats of lawsuits. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. For weeks, we have been documenting the steady decline of the relationship between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. But things just hit a new low with a cease and desist letter sent on behalf of Mr. Trump, who purports to be outraged by this Ted Cruz ad.
Life, marriage, religious liberty, the Second Amendment. We're just one Supreme Court justice away from losing them all.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I would. I am pro-choice in every respect.
We cannot trust Donald Trump with these serious decisions.
Team Trump arguing the businessman is now pro-life, suggesting Cruz's attack ad is replete with lies, and saying if Cruz does not take it down, they will seek immediate legal action against him. And remember, Mr. Trump has also threatened to question Senator Cruz's eligibility to even be the president.
We will bring a lawsuit if he doesn't straighten his act out. He's a lying guy, a really lying guy. Some people misrepresent. This guy's just a plain out liar.
Today, Senator Cruz responded to the threats, going full-on lawyer, practically daring Donald Trump to make a move in a news conference complete with exhibits.
Mr. Trump, you have been threatening frivolous lawsuits for your entire adult life. Even in the annals of frivolous lawsuits, this takes the cake. That lawsuit will be frivolous, and it will result in both Donald Trump and any lawyer that signs his name to the pleadings being sanctioned in court for filing frivolous litigation. One of the things I look forward to most of all is deposing Donald Trump. For that particular endeavor, I may well not use outside counsel. I may take the deposition myself. Donald Trump does not want to be under oath answering questions about his own record, because his position, quite simply...
Some people, nationwide at least, might have been taken aback by all the lying accusations that the candidates leveled at one another at the debate. But it's also true that the national polls don't mean that much now. We're going state to state. On March 1st, Super Tuesday, when more than a dozen states will be voting, then the national polls will begin to be a little bit more relevant. But it also speaks to the margin of error in reading polls. It says plus and minus. So if it's plus 5, you can give that to one candidate, but then it's minus 5, and you're going to take that away from somebody else. There's a big, big margin of error in those polls. National polls are still not as relevant as what's going on in the states, but it does start to be relevant after March 1st. Megyn.
Okay, Carl, great to see you. Well, the last Republican presidential candidate to win a South Carolina primary is our guest right now. Newt Gingrich is the former Speaker of the House and author of Duplicity. Great to see you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Nice to be with you.
What do you make of the fact? I mean, Ted Cruz's campaign is going nuts with this Wall Street Journal poll. They are touting this, loud and clear.
Well, sure.
It's strange to have. I mean, we don't know whether it's an outlier or the beginning of something.
I just checked with a friend of mine who is a very, very good pollster who actually is in the field in South Carolina. And he says he suspects that the Wall Street Journal poll was just an outlier, that he doesn't see any movement in South Carolina comparable to the poll. Certainly in Nevada, where Trump has more support than the next 3 candidates combined, that doesn't seem to fit the poll. But I think Carl Cameron, I started to say campaign Carl Cameron,
he
I've
goes
known
by
him for
that.
so long. Carl's exactly right. What matters right now is what happens on Saturday, both in Nevada for the Democrats and in South Carolina for the Republicans. I must say, I thought Marco Rubio today, in getting endorsed by Governor Nikki Haley, on top of the strong support he has from Senator Tim Scott, really got some momentum. And I think the real fight in South Carolina is who's going to come in second. And that may have a big impact on what happens in Nevada and beyond.
So do you disagree with the wisdom we've heard from others that endorsements don't really matter that much?
No, I think that in this kind of turmoil, they matter a little bit. And frankly, if you're virtually tied, a little bit can be pretty good.
She's so popular.
She's very popular, and she, of course, has been remarkable the last 6 months. And I think that it helps him. He also has Trey Gowdy's support. So Marco's put together a very good campaign in South Carolina. Nobody expects him or Cruz to be able to come in first. I think my biggest disappointment, frankly, isn't the lawsuit, although I do think the idea of Ted Cruz deposing Donald Trump, and as an attorney, I'm not an attorney, but as an attorney, you must just think of that as the circus doesn't get better. But I'll tell you my disappointment.
But it's awesome, too.
My disappointment, though, is not a single Republican has barked. I mean, I think that we owe it to the Democrats to have at least one barking candidate to match up with Hillary Clinton. So
literally, yes. Just for the viewers who aren't aware, he is speaking literally. Hillary Clinton has started barking on the campaign trail.
It's a little strange.
So your team has that going for it. No barking.
That's right.
Although
we have no barking right now.
We saw some sounds in like a Vine that was circulating today from some of the Republicans too that sounded weird. So in fairness to her, let me ask you about the head-to-head polls, because Trump and Cruz are obviously dusting it up, and, you know, it's been fierce. But you look at the head-to-head polls it just released in this Wall Street Journal poll, and it shows, look, Ted Cruz versus Donald Trump, 56-40. He beats him by 16 points. Right. Marco Rubio to Donald Trump, same thing. He beats him by 16 points, 57-41. Is this what's accounting for the frustration we're seeing from the sort of non-Trump fans in the Republican Party, who they feel like the rest of the Republicans, other than Trump, can't get their act together?
Look, I think that there will be enormous pressure after South Carolina on everybody except Rubio and Cruz. They're clearly, right now it's a three-way race between Trump, Cruz, and Rubio. And Trump's challenge, I mean, he's been, and let's be clear, he has been brilliant. I mean, I have never seen anybody who's never been in politics before been able to manage from June 16th when he announced to today the way he has consolidated a base and been the front runner. His challenge is he's done it in a style which creates a ceiling. And unless he finds a way to soften that some, sooner or later he'll be in a one-on-one race, and then he'll be in trouble because he's not adding much above about 40%. And 40% in a 5- or 6-way race is a lot. 40% in a 2-way race is called defeat.
Before I let you go, you won South Carolina. You had that amazing debate with CNN, which was just, I mean, the crowd is basically on its feet in your favor after that. There is another debate before we get to Super Tuesday. There's actually a couple of them. But how important do you think that these forums are that these candidates are putting themselves through? And do you believe that this time around South Carolina will predict the winner, as it usually has, but unfortunately did not in your case? Unfortunately.
Well, I would say a couple of things. One, I think that debates particularly have a negative effect more often than positive. So, for example, Trump did not show up in Iowa. And I think that was a mistake. I think Iowans resented it, and I think that it gave Rubio a chance to shine, and it showed up if you saw the results in the Iowa caucus. On the other hand, Rubio had a really bad night in New Hampshire, and it showed up in the New Hampshire event. So I do think they can have an effect. And frankly, if somebody at some moment suddenly crystallizes, and that's what happened with me in 2 different debates in South Carolina, where we got standing ovations and enormous popular support. If that happens to one of these candidates, and as you get a smaller field, it gets easier for it to happen, then that candidate could get a multi-million-dollar boost in terms of nationwide publicity.
It was an electric moment. Mr. Speaker, it's always great hearing from you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Breaking tonight, new reports that a contested convention, or brokered as they used to call it, could be waiting for the Republican Party. We'll explain how it all works, and we'll look at whether the campaigns are quietly preparing for exactly that. Plus, Governor Jeb Bush is here on his efforts to win over Palmetto State voters, and we'll ask him about his battle with his former protege, Marco Rubio, and the new attacks lobbed against his brother, our former president. And then Speaker Gingrich just mentioned the Democratic showdown in Nevada, and wait until you see what the polls are now saying about a state where Mrs. Clinton once led by more than 12 points.
Everyone of my congressmen, they bring up a poll, I laugh at them. So I don't believe polls. And that's been proven time and time again. I'm right, the pollsters are wrong.
Tonight, new reports that some Republican presidential campaigns are quietly getting ready for a contested convention, the likes of which the GOP has not seen since 1976. We have Republican presidential candidate Governor Jeb Bush with us on that next. But first, we go to Trace Gallagher with the details. Trace?
Megan, some call it brokered, others call it contested. Everybody called it a long shot, but suddenly the odds are improving. Think about it. 6 GOP candidates are still active. The longer they stay in, the more the delegates get split up, and the less likely it is for one candidate to hit the magic number of 1,237. That's how many delegates you need to become the presumptive nominee. If no one hits that number, it's on to a fight on the convention floor in Cleveland, and it appears the campaigns are now working on that what-if scenario. In fact, Marco Rubio says he's ready for a contested convention. Here's how it works. If the vote goes to the convention floor on the first ballot, the delegates are obligated to vote for the candidate they committed to during the primaries and caucuses. But on the second, third, and fourth ballots, they can vote for whoever they want, which is why state party chairmen are now getting calls from the campaigns wanting personal information about the delegates, like how to contact them. Some campaigns are even sending representatives to state and local conventions to get to know the delegates. And one campaign is reportedly using delegate tracking software. The goal, of course, is to push your delegate across the finish line or poach somebody else's along the way. In the old days, the party bosses would wheel and deal to come up with a nominee at the brokered convention. Now the party simply sets the guidelines. For the record, Gerald Ford in '76 was the last candidate to arrive at the convention without enough delegates. He secured the nomination on the first ballot and, of course, lost to Jimmy Carter. Megan.
Trace Gallagher, thank you, sir. Joining us now with more, our Republican presidential candidate, Governor Jeb Bush of Florida. Governor, great to see you. First of all, let's ask about that. Do you think there's any chance of a contested convention in this race?
It could be because of the RNC rules of proportionality for a bunch of states in between March 1st and March 15th. But my focus is on the next 3 days here in South Carolina. But it's possible, well, given the large number of people running still, it's possible that you could get to a contested convention. Hadn't happened in a long time.
Today there was big news in South Carolina. You're focused on the next 3 days in South Carolina because the vote is there on Saturday, where the Republican governor Nikki Haley endorsed Marco Rubio. And just yesterday you had said that this was the most meaningful, probably the most meaningful endorsement if there is one. I mean, I assume you would have liked to have had it. Your reaction to Marco Rubio getting it?
Absolutely, I would love to have had it, and if it's meaningful, having a popular governor endorse you is the best you could get. So kudos to stalled out at their point, so I'm going to work hard.
You mentioned the commander-in-chief. You, of course, used to be governor of Florida. There's news in their region today, just breaking on ABC News, that within the next month, our current commander-in-chief, Barack Obama, plans to visit Cuba, which would be the first time in 80 years a sitting president has done that. The last was Calvin Coolidge. The price of a house in that year was $7,000. The price of a car was $265. So it's been a while. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a tragedy in my mind that we have diplomatic relations and the president's trying to build legacy here when if you have a different view than the Castro regime, you're put in prison. The ladies, damas en blanco, the ladies in white, continue to be beat up after Mass on Sundays. Political dissension does not exist. There's very little capitalism. Small businesses don't flourish there. You basically have to deal with the Castro government if you want to do business there.
So you feel he's legitimizing this system?
It breaks my heart. Yeah, it does. Just as we legitimized the regime in Iran by negotiating this agreement, the nuclear agreement, we're doing the same by diplomatic relations. We got nothing in return. And my hope is that Cuba will be free one day, and that's when the president should be going there, not in time when there's no efforts to free the country for its people.
What do you think it says at this point, Governor, that Donald Trump is leading in South Carolina by such a big margin, including with evangelical voters?
Look, it says that people are so angry and so disaffected and have such anxiety that they're willing to latch on a guy who's neither an evangelical nor a conservative nor a Republican in many ways. I mean, and certainly not someone who would have the steadiness that you need to draw people towards our cause as it relates to foreign policy.
He says he's a conservative. He's a common sense conservative.
Yeah, really? Well, his views have shifted on every position, whether it's the pro-life cause, the Second Amendment. It wasn't that long ago he was for a 14.5% tax on assets. He admires the single-payer system. That's not common sense conservatism. In this fight, I think Ted Cruz is probably right.
It was an interesting idea to think of Ted Cruz sitting there taking Donald Trump's deposition. What would happen when Trump objected? Overruled.
What are we talking about here? We're trying to elect a president. We're living in dangerous times, and I think here in South Carolina, particularly where national security issues are really important, it seems to be, at least the people that have shown up at my events, and there are large crowds that do it, they want a commander-in-chief. They don't want an entertainer-in-chief.
Governor, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megan.
All the best. Well, one of the most surprising political reports tonight comes from the state of Nevada, where people are now asking whether Bernie Sanders is about to win a long shot bet. Ed Henry has quite a report, live from Las Vegas in a bit. Plus, as Justice Scalia, a history-making legal giant, is laid to rest, the White House says President Obama will not attend his funeral. Former White House Press Secretary Dana Perino is next on that.
So the president will not be at the funeral on Saturday?
The president will pay his respects at the Supreme Court on Friday.
Reporters of Fox News, it's the Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Breaking tonight, new reaction to President Obama's decision not to attend the funeral of the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest revealing the President and First Lady will instead pay their respects to the court icon on Friday, when the Justice's body will lie in repose in the Supreme Court building.
So the President will not be at the funeral on Saturday?
The President will pay his respects at the Supreme Court on Friday, and he'll be joined with the First Lady when he does that.
Can you rule out him going golfing on Saturday instead of the funeral?
I don't have a sense of what the President's plans are for Saturday.
Dana Perino is co-host of The Five and a former White House press secretary under George W. Bush. She also served as White House spokesperson to Justice Roberts and Alito, Chief Justice Roberts, as they made their way through the confirmation process. Dana, great to see you.
Those were the days. In fact, I think that when we sort of crossed paths then.
For the first time, because I was covering the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And you were shepherding Roberts through, Chief Justice Roberts through. I find no precedent for this in history, that a sitting U.S. president would not attend the death of a sitting Supreme Court justice. Why wouldn't he go? The White House says he has no plans on Saturday.
If I'm trying to be charitable, maybe it's because he didn't want to be a distraction at the funeral. But even when I try to be charitable like that, my argument falls apart. I think the president clearly doesn't want to go. The staff wasn't able to tell him, no, you really should go. And I think there's lots of reasons he should go. One of them is that he's only going to be president for the next 9 months. Participate. He's going to miss being president of the United States. And this is one of those things where you participate and you lead, in my opinion.
And you set the example. You show the country that even though you have these ideological divisions, you can pay respect to somebody like this who served his country honorably for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And yet, despite the president's commitment to doing that we heard in the State of the Union and earlier last week, he refuses for some reason.
The president said that one of his regrets was that he wasn't able to bridge partisan divides. And then he fails to practice what he preaches. This is an easy thing to do.
Right.
It takes an hour out of your day. It would be the right thing to do. And you make a good point. He was a justice for 30 years on the bench. He was a public servant. He had dedicated his life to this country. And liberals and conservatives have both been praising him as a jurist. But you could disagree with his opinions.
The biggest liberal on the U.S. Supreme Court, or at least one of them, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, loved this man.
Yeah, she said they were best buddies.
And she could see past the ideological division. He's the commander-in-chief.
Do you think for 1 second if it was a liberal justice that had died,
no,
that he wouldn't go?
He would be there. He should be there to pay his respects to this justice. The same way a Republican president should go to pay his respects. God forbid one of the other justices should die on the other side.
And if he's thinking politically, And he's made this big case that there's precedent, there's a reason for my nominee to get a hearing and to be voted on soon while I'm still president. If he really believes that if you're just even thinking politically, go to the funeral.
But here's the other thing to do. Already the whole thing is being seen through a political lens, including by Hillary Clinton, who came out and suggested that the fact that the Republicans are not going to give President Obama's nominee a hearing, they've said they won't. Keep in mind, President Obama filibustered Justice Alito, but now they want a hearing, which they were not prepared to give Justice Alito. Now they want a hearing, and Hillary Clinton says if they don't give it to him, it's bigotry, it's racism. Listen.
Now the Republicans say they'll reject anyone President Obama nominates, no matter how qualified. Some are even saying he doesn't have the right to nominate anyone, as if somehow he's not the real president. Many Republicans talk in coded racial language. They demonize President Obama. This kind of hatred and bigotry has no place in our politics or our country.
I wonder what she had said about Miguel Estrada, one of the best jurists in the country. He was a nominee under George W. Bush. He was absolutely blocked. And what if I had said from the podium, is it because he's Hispanic? Is it because is not white, Hillary Clinton, that you're against Miguel Estrada?
She's talking about coded racial language 2 days after her husband, Bill Clinton, goes out there and tries to lecture us about the human genome and how unless you have
He's the real first black president.
All black history in your family tree, then you're mixed race and you're not, I guess, really black in his view. But but like now we're getting the lecture on, anyway, my head is spinning. But by the way, did you know that Donald Trump is going to sue Ted Cruz and Ted Cruz is going to take his deposition?
I know. That visual would be pretty fun.
Hey, that's great to see you.
Thank you.
Also tonight, days after Justice Scalia's death, we are still hearing stories of questionable reactions to his passing. The latest comes from Justice Scalia's alma mater, Georgetown University. Get this. Trace Gallagher has the details. Trace.
Megan, on the day Justice Scalia died, the dean of Georgetown Law School, William Traynor, issued a statement saying, quote, like countless academics, I learned a great deal from his opinions and his scholarship. In the history of the court, few justices have had such influence on the way in which the law is understood. The dean went on to thank Scalia for his many appearances at the law school and ended by saying, we will all miss him. But Professors Gary Peller and Mike Seidman took offense at the dean speaking for the whole Georgetown University. Seidman, not wanting to criticize a public figure immediately after death, said simply that he disagreed with the dean's sentiments, but Professor Peller went much deeper, saying that people of color, women, and sexual minorities likely cringed at the dean's statements. He went on to call Scalia, quote, defender of privilege, oppression, and bigotry, who openly sided with the party of intolerance in the culture wars he often invoked. Peller went on to say Scalia was not a legal figure to be lionized or emulated. Megan.
Unbelievable. Trace, thank you. Joining us now with more, Arthur Aidala. You know him. He's a New York trial attorney, and he actually studied under Justice Scalia and became one of his close friends. This I've known about you for a long time, and I confess you were the first person I thought of after Justice Scalia's family when hearing the news. How are you?
Oh, I'm so sad. And, you know, I wasn't one of his close friends. He was one of my close friends.
You loved him.
I loved him, and he was a mentor. I met him. I was 20.
Here you are together.
I was 23. Yeah, I was already old there. I was 23 years old. I did a study abroad program in Italy, and the head of the program asked me to cook for the justice. So I wind up cooking for Justice Scalia and his two aunts and his wife.
Thanks to Mama Aidala.
Thanks to Mama and grandmas. And Megan, this is the first time I met him, and he walks right into the kitchen. He rips the bread off. He dips it right in the sauce. And right away, this brilliant man, this incredibly powerful man is such a down-to-earth, regular, and I use the word cool because he was like a fun person to hang out with. And that was my first time hanging out with him, and my last time hanging out with him, equality, was just he and I, was this past May. We went to lunch. My routine with him was I would pick out my favorite case of that term. He would get me to sit right in his wife's seats inside the well, as you know very well. We'd watch the arguments, and then I'd go into his chambers, and he'd have to do something for 5 minutes, and then he'd walk in, and this is what I'm going to miss hearing. He would walk in, and this is what you'd hear. Arturo! Aww. Where's Arturo? I'm hungry. And we would go right down into his car, and we would chit-chat in the car, and this last particular time, he gets out of the car, and he goes, I'm in a celebratory mood. And I said, why? He said, because I didn't know which way I was going to vote on that last case. And the oral argument made my mind up.
Wow.
I said, yeah, that's what I said, really? I said, so how are we celebrating? He goes, we're going to drink Campari for lunch, which is an Italian. And Megan,
you said, you came to the right place.
Right, exactly. And we went to his favorite restaurant, Tosca, and as a little jib to me, a little dig, he goes, I know you're a big TV star now, so I told him I need the middle table so everyone could see that I'm having lunch with Arthur Idala.
I know, and
we had the best time.
Cranes did a big piece on you, and he was so proud of you. Your own dad couldn't have been prouder of you.
He was screaming. When I walked in the office and I showed it to him, it happened to be released on the day I was going to see him. He was like, oh my God, when I met you in Italy, I never thought you had this in you. And he goes, wait till I tell Maureen. And I learned so much from him, and he's always in the front of my mind.
Before I let you go, what is your message to the people like these folks at Georgetown who don't even want to see him remembered as a great jurist? Well, regardless of what you think of the way he approached cases.
Justice Breyer wrote, he's a legal titan. And that they couldn't be any more accurate. Even the President of the United States said he will be a jurist that will be remembered forever. And I will tell you, I had conversations with him about gay marriage. I had conversations with him about abortion. Abortion was a personal issue to him.
He was a devout Catholic.
Gay marriage was not. That wasn't his cause.
He just didn't see it in the Constitution.
He didn't see it as a right. If the legislators in New York State want to make it a law, that's fine. But don't tell me 225 years ago, when they wrote the Constitution, this was a right. And he didn't believe the justices should have that power. Yeah. He thought the voters should have that power. It's that simple. His son said it perfectly last night.
It's great to see you.
And I told him the story about you.
Oh, when I thought he was coming over to me?
At lunch, I told him that story, and I told it very dramatically.
You told Justice Scalia this story?
Justice Scalia, and he was at Bay. I said, by the way, Megyn Kelly, and you worked at Jones Day.
Did he know who I was? He had no idea, did he?
No.
Don't answer that question.
In May, he knew who you were. But he said he didn't know who you were about this when you gave. And he cracked up laughing when I said, you know what you told her, Your Honor? He goes, what? I said, sweetie, could you take a picture of us? And he goes, oh my. He goes, am I in trouble? I go, you're not in trouble. And the other thing he left with me was he met Geraldo Rivera once and he loved him. Absolutely fell in love.
It just went on the edge there.
No. He said he's one of the most charming men I've ever met. That's what he told me.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for having me on, Megan. It meant so much to me to talk about my friend.
You were the only one I really, really wanted to hear from because I know how much you loved him and respected him.
I love his whole family.
As a lawyer and a man. God bless.
Thank you.
Good to see you, love. Up next. Isn't he the best? Is Hillary hitting a wall in Nevada? New numbers show she's losing ground and how to Bernie Sanders. We'll go live to Las Vegas and Ed Henry with that report. And then Kirsten Powers and Nomiki Konst are here for a fair and balanced debate. Plus a grisly murder, a media-hungry defendant, and steamy details made the Jodi Arias trial a case that gripped the nation. And now the prosecutor who put her behind bars for life is speaking out about how she almost got away with it. And he's here.
You should have at least done your makeup, Jodi. Gosh.
You are nobody's firewall. That we built this country. The sweat and the tears of black folks built this country. And we ain't nobody's firewall. That you gotta earn our vote. You don't own our vote.
That may be why Hillary Clinton is racing to other states. In Illinois today, on Saturday night, when the caucus results are coming in here in Nevada, she's actually going to be in Houston, Texas. They vote on March 1st. Hedging her bets, perhaps, because she doesn't know how all this is going to turn out Saturday. The other important point, I spoke to Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid from Nevada last night. He tells me he's not going to endorse before the caucus. That's an endorsement from the establishment Hillary Clinton wanted to have. And then late today, the AFL-CIO says they're not picking sides either. Hillary Clinton wanted to wrap this up. Megan is just simply not doing it.
Wow. Ed, thank you. Joining me now, Fox News contributor Kirsten Powers and Nomiki Konst, founder of the Accountability Project. Ladies, it appears we have a real race going on. Am I wrong, Kirsten?
No, you're right. You're right. I think, look, the Clinton campaign has certainly been saying that, okay, Bernie won in Iowa, or, they tied in Iowa, Bernie won in New Hampshire, but Nevada's where everything's going to be set straight. And if not Nevada, then South Carolina. But as the poll you had up earlier, now things have narrowed in Nevada, where she was well ahead of him, where it is a more racially diverse state, and they have said she will do better in racially diverse states, and now it looks like she may not be doing well there. And so I think now they're shifting to South Carolina. But look, you know, South Carolina 7 days after Nevada. Who's to say those polls aren't going to tighten up as we get closer?
1 point now, 1 point, Nomiki. Yeah. And the question is whether there's been a shifting of the perception in the Democratic Party about whether this guy can really do it, whether she is, in fact, their only option, or whether this guy is a viable option.
You've nailed it on the head. It's all been about perception up until this point. You know, her campaign has made the case that she's the most electable candidate. Well, clearly we're seeing she can't make it through a primary without a tough fight. She has more money, has more endorsements. I mean, he's raising more right now, but she still has raised more money than him. She has all of the media support for the most part. She has all the establishment support. And, you know, the Democratic Party was really hoping that she would be the candidate that would carry them to the general election and win against a Jeb Bush, per se. But that's not proving to be true. And I think one thing that they didn't pay attention to, the Democratic establishment, was that young people really have different ideologies than the blue dog Democrats of the 90s and the 80s. And it's really hard for Hillary Clinton to shift away from that record and her husband's record, which, in all fairness, has not been great for African Americans. But, you know, they've pandered to these audiences, and Bernie Sanders is a reflection of the future of the Democratic Party.
What about that, Kirsten? Was she pandering with that soundbite about the Republicans not giving President Obama a hearing on his judicial nominee is bigotry? It's bigotry against President Obama?
I mean, maybe she believes it, but, you know, it certainly strikes me as pandering. I mean, I would say that it's not just younger voters that have changed. If you look at the exit polls of New Hampshire and Iowa, if that holds in future states, it's demonstrably more liberal than it was in 2008. You know, you have 10, I think it was 10 points higher in Iowa, people identifying as very liberal. The number of moderates were down. It was similar in New Hampshire. It might have been 6 points, but it's a very clear shifting that the party has moved to the left. And if you look at the CNN poll, where Bernie's really winning is on the economy, and it's in most age groups. You know, she does well with people over 65, but pretty much everybody else is really connecting with his message.
I got to go, but I have to ask you about the barking, Nomiki, because we promised the audience that this existed, and here it is, and you can tell me why she did this.
I'm trying to figure out how we can do that with the Republicans. Oh, you know, the Great Recession was caused by too much regulation. You know?
So she was trying to make a point about, you know, the barking dogs when they hear sort of the same line, but like that, I don't...
It was her Howard Dean moment, except she's backed by the Democratic Party, so she's not going to implode like Howard Dean did. I don't know. I mean, maybe she's tired. I think that she's having a problem with messaging right now.
It was an attempt at levity on the campaign trail that then, of course, people in cable news abuse. Great to see you both.
Nice to see you.
Also tonight, the Jodi Arias case featured a bloody, terrible murder, a handsome victim, and a beautiful accused killer. And now the prosecutor who put Jodi Arias behind bars for life is speaking out about how she almost got away with this. And he is here next.
Travis stabbed.
More than I want to remember. I think you're feeling the reality in the moment now.
No, I'm just feeling all of the things that I'm going to potentially miss out on with my family, and I think of all the things that Travis's family is going to miss out on with Travis.
I'm thinking about all the things I'm going to miss out on and that his family's going to miss. That was Jodi Arias in 2008 under interrogation for the murder of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Arias tried to claim that she killed her ex in an act of self-defense, but veteran prosecutor Juan Martinez did not buy it. And after a 7-year legal battle, Arias was convicted on charges of first-degree murder and sent to prison for the rest of her life. Here now, Juan Martinez, author of the new book, Conviction, the untold story of putting Jodi Arias behind bars. Juan, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're a deputy district attorney in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona.
I still am.
Some of our viewers may know that as the hometown of Sheriff Joe.
That's true.
You get this case. Why do you say it's the untold story? Because the nation watched as she tried to claim that she was emotionally abused and yada, yada. You saw right through it and got the right result. What's the untold story that we don't know?
The untold story is what I was thinking and why I did the things that I did. It's easy to watch on television and say, well, he said this and he said that. But, for example, why is he being that way with her? Why is he being so strident with her on cross-examination? Why did he hold back certain pieces of evidence and then presented them later? For example, the gas cans. I could have presented them in opening statement. I chose not to.
So she borrowed 2 gas cans a month before the murder and then tried to act like this was not pre-planned.
Right. And
that was a relevant fact.
Right. And in addition to that, I was able to find that she also bought a 3rd gas can from Walmart on the way to visit him.
What was the pivotal moment in the case in securing the conviction? The most important?
I think when she took the witness stand and she was subject to my cross-examination.
And you had evidence of a camera. She murdered him and she took photos.
Well, she didn't actually take the photos. The camera itself did it. So it was almost an act of providence. She had the camera on her. When the attack took place, the camera dropped and it hit the shutter or the button. And there were 3 photographs that were taken inadvertently. The most dramatic one showed as she is stepping over him. The blood is coming from his neck, and she's sort of grabbing him, about to drag him down the hallway.
She's only 28 years old when she did this. Crime of passion? She was jealous? What really was the motivation?
This was not a crime of passion if you're planning it a couple of weeks in advance. So
he didn't want to be with her.
Well, he really didn't. He'd already told her that he didn't want to marry her, that she was just somebody that he liked as a friend. Obviously, when she showed up, he was weak, and he was 30 years old, and they engaged in some sort of...
They went to bed together, and then she murdered him. He was in the shower, and she brutally murdered him while he was at his most vulnerable. Does this woman have any chance of getting out of prison?
No, this is... she was sentenced to natural life.
And why didn't she get death? What was the vote on that by the jury?
I know that the vote was 11-1, but I don't know.
In favor of death, but one holdout.
Right.
Unbelievable. She is lucky that the jury spared her. Juan, good luck with the book, Conviction. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You do all this research on the
program. We have Senator Marco Rubio, we have Charles Krauthammer, and we have Tim Allen. Figure that one out. You will tomorrow at 9. See you then. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Megyn Kelly. With just 3 days to go before South Carolina votes, we are witnessing an all-out war between the top Republican contenders and even new threats of lawsuits. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. For weeks, we have been documenting the steady decline of the relationship between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. But things just hit a new low with a cease and desist letter sent on behalf of Mr. Trump, who purports to be outraged by this Ted Cruz ad.
Life, marriage, religious liberty, the Second Amendment. We're just one Supreme Court justice away from losing them all.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I would. I am pro-choice in every respect.
We cannot trust Donald Trump with these serious decisions.
Team Trump arguing the businessman is now pro-life, suggesting Cruz's attack ad is replete with lies, and saying if Cruz does not take it down, they will seek immediate legal action against him. And remember, Mr. Trump has also threatened to question Senator Cruz's eligibility to even be the president.
We will bring a lawsuit if he doesn't straighten his act out. He's a lying guy, a really lying guy. Some people misrepresent. This guy's just a plain out liar.
Today, Senator Cruz responded to the threats, going full-on lawyer, practically daring Donald Trump to make a move in a news conference complete with exhibits.
Mr. Trump, you have been threatening frivolous lawsuits for your entire adult life. Even in the annals of frivolous lawsuits, this takes the cake. That lawsuit will be frivolous, and it will result in both Donald Trump and any lawyer that signs his name to the pleadings being sanctioned in court for filing frivolous litigation. One of the things I look forward to most of all is deposing Donald Trump. For that particular endeavor, I may well not use outside counsel. I may take the deposition myself. Donald Trump does not want to be under oath answering questions about his own record, because his position, quite simply,
Just 3 days to go before South Carolina votes, we are witnessing an all-out war between the top Republican contenders and even new threats of lawsuits. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. For weeks, we have been documenting the steady decline of the relationship between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. But things just hit a new low with a cease and desist letter sent on behalf of Mr. Trump, who purports to be outraged by this Ted Cruz ad.
Life, marriage, religious liberty, the Second Amendment. We're just one Supreme Court justice away from losing them all.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice.
But you